We've spent a lot of time on hashes already, but in this lesson, I want to focus on just two things, and they're both attacks. It's the pass the hash attack and the birthday attack. As we previously discussed in our hashing lesson, passwords are stored on a server in their hashed format. Pass the hash is a hacking technique that allows an attacker to authenticate to a remote server or service by using the underlying hash of a user's password instead of requiring the associated plaintext password as you normally would have to do. Now, if an attacker is able to sniff that hash or steal it some other way, they don't need to brute force the clear text password. Instead, they can simply reuse the hash of that arbitrary user account as they go and authenticate against remote systems and impersonate that user. In other words, from an attacker's perspective, hashes are functionally equivalent to the original password that they generated, and it doesn't mean that they need to know your actual password to use your account as if they were you. The pass the hash attack is very difficult to defend against because there are many possible exploits in Windows as well as the applications that run on top of it. And any of these can be used by an attacker to elevate their permissions and then be able to pull off credential harvesting or hash harvesting that they can then use in a further attack using pass the hash. Also, only one machine in a Windows domain needs to be misconfigured or missing a critical security patch for an attacker to find their way in and be able to execute this technique. There are many penetration tools out there, such as Mimikatz, that give you the ability to automate this process of harvesting the hashes and conducting the attack. To prevent the pass the hash attack, you should ensure that only trusted operating systems are allowed to connect to your servers, that your Windows domains have their trust set up properly, and that workstations are all patched and updated, that your multi-factor authentication is being used properly in the network, and that user accounts have been set up to use the concept of least privilege. Now, the second type of attack that I want to talk about is called a birthday attack. The birthday attack occurs when an attacker is able to send two different messages through a hash algorithm and it results in the same identical hash digest, causing a collision. This attack gets its name from something called the birthday paradox, which says that if you have a random group of people, the chances are that you're going to have two people in that group with the same birthday. When I teach this course in person to a group of 30 people, most of the time, two people in the class have the same birthday, at least the same month and day, if not also the year. In fact, even though there are 365 days in a year, you only need 57 people in a room to get a 99% chance of having two identical birthdays. With 23 people in a room, your odds are 50-50. That's why in my classes of 30 students, more often than not, we have identical birthdays. In the world of hashes, two identical hash digests would result in a collision. Now, if an attacker can find two identical messages with the same hash, they could use this as an attack against your system. For example, if they found a match to your password's hash, they could bypass your authentication system, even by entering in the wrong password. And for this reason, we want to make sure we're using hashes with long output digests. So when we start using things like SHA-256 over MD5, this reduces the amount of collisions and reduces the effectiveness of a birthday attack.